A major program is announced that provides rent assistance in a way we never saw before. Hey everybody, this is LALATE with a second stimulus check and stimulus package update today with great exciting news about rent assistance. And I did not see this coming, but boy, this has been a day with a lot of great news. This one came from presidential candidate Joseph Biden minutes ago, and it talks about an emergency plan to provide assistance for people in living situations starting right away. This is, of course, if he's elected. As you know, when we talk about rent assistance and grant programs, we're talking about them all across the board when we're talking about a second stimulus package. Let me get right to Biden's plan before I get to the other ones, for they're both on a state and federal level. The second 21st Century Caregiving and Educational Workforce Plan announced today by Biden proposes $775 billion over 10 years that would focus on issues like rent and programs like home health care, especially if you're disabled. So for my SSI, SSDI, and Social Security benefits recipients, this is really great news. It's a little complicated, it's a little hard to follow, and it's a little complex, but the great news is that it's a lot of money, and it's proposed to go towards providing daycare and early child care, in-home elderly care, and long-term care for the disabled. The program provides emergency funding to state, local, and tribal governments to provide housing during this pandemic, as millions of families are having problems making rent. The first part of the plan is aimed to provide child care services for children under 5 years of age. The second part is to expand care options for the elderly and disabled. So especially for my SSDI, SSI, and Social Security and railroad benefits people, especially community-based in-care home. He would allocate $450 billion that would be used to increase funding and eliminate waiting times for in-person home care facilities. The plan would also be great for the other viewers of this channel because it would create jobs. It would propose 150,000 new jobs for community health workers to work in this environment in what would be called a National Public Health Jobs Corps. Really great, exciting news. So basically, if you are having problems making rent, if you're having problems providing healthcare, getting healthcare at home, this program would provide it to you. For these workers, he would raise wages and protect their rights, and you would allow for unionizing. So it would basically be hazard pay. My other video for you, hazard pay, but also unionizing for this task force. It would also pass a domestic workers' bill of rights. Based upon what Kamala Harris did, that would protect those workers as well. Ultimately, you know, I'm never political. I don't intend to use this channel for political purposes, but I'm just informing you about a new proposal for rent assistance. Now, rent programs on a federal level is what we talk about in the second stimulus package. The second stimulus package is like a box. It's like a box and has a lot of stuff in the box. The second stimulus package has the check. It has unemployment benefits, it has hazard pay, and it has rent assistance. That's why I do different videos every day. It is currently in the Senate from the House. It's called the HEROES Act. It was passed in the House by Democrats and is before the Senate, who are Republicans. The vote on it will come, they'll start debating it later this week and early next week as they get back in session. And we'll see what happens with it. Ultimately, the confusion has been Mitch Onse. Mitch Onse, which is that Republican version of the second stimulus package, that's my code name for it, has really not been debuted very clearly yet. It came out a little bit today. It came out so vaguely that I had very little to report on. And we don't know if the Republicans are going to have rent assistance in their program. I really do think they will. I think it's just ridiculous if they don't. And I'll tell you why. There are Republican governors and Republican representatives in Congress who are fighting tooth and nail for rent assistance for their citizens of their state. So it's not like rent assistance is only a Democratic call of order. Both Republicans and Democrats are asking for rent assistance. Yesterday, and actually on Sunday, I detailed that the mayor here in Los Angeles, which is a very, very big city, I mean, our city is bigger than some states in the country, is saying, hey, we need rent assistance. What happens when we talk about rent assistance in a federal program, it gets a little complicated because there's two types of it. So I'm going to slow this down for you so you don't get lost. The first one is an actual program where it comes right to you. That's what's in the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act proposes a program that you would apply to get money that you would get money for your rent and utilities. How would it work? Very, very simple. Basically, you would provide them your landlord's contact information, and you would provide them the amount of money. You would provide them indication of why you can't make rent, how much money you make per year, and if you're eligible, then the way the program would work is every month the program would pay rent to the landlord for you, would pay utilities to the utility company for you. You literally don't have to do anything. It's very, very simple. I mean, everyone loves simple. This one is simple. You would apply, so you're actually applying for it. And then when approved, then the money would be sent to the landlord and the utilities company every month for you. You wouldn't have to do anything about it. It's such great news. I mean, it really, really is great news because it saves the economy from going into total destruction. I mean, how can you not want this bill? I mean, if you don't want this bill, you want half of America homeless? I mean, it's just, 75% of people who make less than $40,000 per year are unemployed right now because of the pandemic. So what do you want to do? You just want to throw them out on the street and make them homeless? And it's, of course this has to pass. It's just ridiculous if it doesn't. So the way it would work was to ensure that you have a home. You would have a home as a renter. And this would ensure that would be the situation into 2021. It would ensure great things for everyone else in the food chain, which I'm always respectful of everyone else. It protects the landlord, your landlord at your apartment building. They will get their income from the federal government, not from you. And so they could pay their bills. They could pay their property taxes and their other bills that they have on the building. And they wouldn't lose their building to foreclosure. It also protects the banks because the banks don't want to foreclose on people's buildings. They don't want to pick up foreclosed buildings because they lose money on their mortgage. Next, I always get the question, I always want to make it clear as well. It protects people who live and own in their home. So if you have a home and you own it, it would protect your home as well. It would protect your home against foreclosure on the mortgage. What are these words called? They're very, very big words. I try not to use the big words, but sometimes I want you to hear the word so that you're like, oh, that's that word LALATE told me about. Okay, now I recognize that word. So the word for the rent can be called rent assistance or rent grants. Then when we talk about not throwing you out on the street, the way that they try to throw you on the street is called an eviction with an E. So the program talks about eviction moratoriums. A moratorium means we won't allow it to happen. Like, bananas moratorium means we're not going to sell any bananas this week. That's what moratorium means. I'm just making it very simple. Eviction moratorium means they can't evict you during this period. And that's what the bill includes. They cannot throw you on the street when there's a pandemic going on. I mean, what government wants to throw its citizens on the street during a pandemic? Why? We want to have half the country on the street homeless during a pandemic so they can really just spread COVID-19 so quickly? That's a great plan. No government wants to do that. That's ridiculous. So then those are those words. The other words I want you to hear and recognize, you don't have to remember them, is forbearance, mortgage forbearance, foreclosure forbearance. Those are the words that that mean that we're going to prevent these things from happening. So banks cannot foreclose on your home. If you own your home, you can't make the mortgage. Really, really great stuff. So that's the first part of the HEROES Act and the federal programs that are proposed on the second stimulus package. The other one that's often really overlooked, I mean, I don't think anyone goes in this detail like me. I mean, I really don't think they do because it's so important, is that every state, when there was a first stimulus package, and every state now that there's a second stimulus package on the books being proposed, lobbies Congress to get money for grant for their state that they will disperse. What am I talking about? During the first stimulus package in May, Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is governor of New York, lobbied Congress for grant money for rent that would be paid to the citizens of New York under a first stimulus package. He got it. He absolutely got it. So this is different than this is everything that different than I talked about before, where you apply for the rent and it's between you and the landlord. No. This is where the state creates rent programs where it sends out money for you for rent. And that program went live last Friday. I drop in the description of this video. The one in LA has been live for a few weeks, but now has expired. The thing about this that's a little bit confusing, which I don't particularly like, is that why did you get this money from the first stimulus package in May and you're just going live with this now in July? I'm like, come on, you can't move faster than that. But at least it's there. So what makes this so great and exciting is that we absolutely know that the governors and the members of Congress and the mayors are lobbying Congress right now to get money for their states for rent money under a second stimulus package. What they're doing is the mayors are calling up the senators and saying, hey, we need money for our state. Our citizens can't make rent. And so that will be part of the second stimulus package. I don't know how much. I don't know where it's going to land. So when we're talking about that big box that's in that box with checks and hazard pay and unemployment, and we're talking about the plan that I told you before, the HEROES Act that has a rent program, well, then there's all these other things. And that's what we're talking about with funds to be provided to states. There's one type of state that I'm worried about, and I got to tell you the bad, and I got to tell you the good. And this is the part that's the bad. It makes me worry about some of my viewers that may be in the situation. There are some states that have counties that don't have a lot of people in the county. They're just a small county. It's a very, very unpopulated area. There's just not a lot of people living there. During the first stimulus package, we know that some of the heads of those counties were very, very upset that they got no money. What happened in the first stimulus package is that money was allocated to states to give for rent money. And this is what's going to happen again for the second stimulus package. But they said that it would be only allocated to counties in that state that had a certain number of citizens or more. So if you lived in a county that's very rural and only had 200, 300 people, that county got no rent money, no grant money for rent because you were too small. And the governors were irate about it. I'm irate about it. So ultimately, I want you to be alert about it. If you are in a rural area that does not have a lot of citizens, that is very, very, very small, when I'm talking to you with these programs for states getting money to disperse to you, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. In the case of New York, it does work, thank God. Cuomo's plan applies to everywhere. But in other places, it doesn't. So that is the twist and turn. Ultimately, what's going to be happening this week is we're going to see from the Republicans what they really intend to do with rent money. I mean, there are two things that are three things. They're so critical during this pandemic: hazard pay, rent assistance, and unemployment benefits. And I really do think all those three things are going to get passed. I mean, that's the reason I'm doing 6 videos a day. I really just think that that's going to get passed. We know some of it will, but when it comes to rent, we just have complete silence from the Republicans at the moment. And I hope that silence stops pretty soon because it's just like enough already. They're going to start debating it later this week. They're going to go into session thereafter. And then they have until about August 7th, August 8th, August 9th, August 10th to get it approved. And how quickly could the money be coming to you right after that? That is to be determined. It could be a few weeks or it could be at least a month. And for now, we have a lot of stuff still moving around, still twisting and turning. So please, if you like this video, please like the video. And as always, stay motivated, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay educated. And stay with LA for more.